The hinge gave a sharp squeal, then stopped, as if it had decided to be stubborn on purpose. Jack Mercer held the garage door half open, with both hands, arms locked, sweat already slick on his skin. The sun in North Charleston came up fast, turning the cracked pavement outside his shop into a pale glare. Behind the building, a freight train crawled along the tracks, steel wheels grinding. Dad, Lily said from inside, "It's mad at you." Jack let out a breath that was almost a laugh. "It's not mad. It's dry." He lowered the door an inch, and the squeal returned louder. Lily winced like the sound had teeth. Jack reached for a dented can on the shelf and sprayed the hinge. The scent of lubricant cut through the usual mix of old oil and hot metal. The door moved again. This time it sounded like relief. Lily climbed off her milk crate and came closer, squinting at the hinge. She was 8 and built like a sparrow, all elbows and determination. A pencil smudge marked one cheek. "So, if it's dry, she said, "It hurts." Jack wiped his hands on a rag. "That's right." She tilted her head. "People get dry, too." Jack paused. The question was small, but it slid under his ribs anyway. "People don't get dry," he said. "People get worn." Lily considered that serious as a little judge. "Worn like your hands." Jack glanced down. His knuckles were scarred. A thin cut near his thumb had split open again. He flexed his fingers and felt skin tug. "Like my hands," he agreed. On the counter sat a coffee mug with a hairline crack, and beside it a stack of envelopes held down by a socket wrench. The top one was bright white with a bold red stamp, "Past due." Jack did not open them. He did not have to. He could hear the numbers the way he could hear a belt slipping. Above the shop, a narrow apartment waited with a sink that dripped and a window that stuck in summer. Lily called it home like it was the most normal thing in the world. Jack did too when he could. At night, after she fell asleep with a book on her chest, he sat at the same count hour and turned pages instead of wrenches. Old service manuals, schematics, anything with angles and load paths. He kept one battered rehab booklet Evan had brought home, the corners soft from use, and hopeful scribbles inside. Lily had paper spread out on the floor like a blueprint, gears, brackets, a stick figure with legs made of triangles. At the hips she had drawn a big circle and written in crooked letters, "Balance." "Show me," Jack said, nodding at the page. "You're not at the page." Lily scooted it toward him. "If the weight is here," she said, tapping the circle, "it won't tip over. If it's down there, it wobbles." Down there was the knee. She had shaded it dark like a bruise. Jack stared at her drawing longer than he meant to. His throat tightened quick and sharp. He swallowed it down and forced his face into something easy. "You been watching people walk again?" he asked. Lily shrugged. "I watch everybody. Mrs. Raines limps when she's tired. Mr. Gomez leans when his backpack is heavy. You lean when you're thinking." Jack's mouth twitched. "Do I?" "You do." She said it like a fact, "and your eyes get sad." Jack reached for the pencil behind her ear and tucked it back in more firmly. "My eyes aren't sad," he said too fast. Lily did not argue. She picked up a small metal latch from the bench, the kind used on an old toolbox. Her fingers worked it open and closed, open and closed. Click, click, click. Jack listened to the sound and felt something inside him answer it. The first time his life snapped into a new shape had not been loud, just a voice on a phone that sounded tired. The shop was smaller then. Jack was 26, running on caffeine and panic because Lily was still a newborn and his wife Marisol was gone. Complications. The word was polite. It still left a crater. That afternoon, the call came from the hospital. His brother Evan had been down at Folly Beach with friends, the kind of day that looked harmless until it wasn't. A wave, a bad landing, a neck bent the wrong way. T6, the doctor said. Complete injury, paralysis from the chest down. Jack had pressed his palm to the workbench, right where the wood was stained black from years of oil. The smell of salt had drifted in from the harbor, mixing with gasoline, and he remembered thinking, not now. Evan had always loved motion. Engines, water, anything that proved the world could change. Marr. In the hospital, he tried to joke even with tubes taped to his skin. "Look at you," Evan rasped, once eyes sunken but still sharp. "You're wearing grief like a uniform." Jack had leaned in close. "Don't," he had said. It was all he could manage. Evan's hand had been warm fingers trembling as they gripped Jack's wrist. "Promise me something," Evan whispered. "If you ever get a chance, don't let people like me here accept your fate and think that's kindness." Jack had nodded. His throat was a locked door. If he spoke, he would break. Evan died 5 years later, not in a dramatic moment, but in a slow thinning of breath. The last thing Jack remembered was the feeling of his brother's grip letting go one finger at a time. Now in the garage, Jack blinked, and the memory pulled back like tidewater. Outside, the train rattled on. Lily's latch kept clicking. "Dad," Lily said softer, "are you thinking about Uncle Evan?" Jack exhaled through his nose. "Yeah." She scooted closer until her shoulder touched his leg. It was a small contact, but it anchored him. "I miss him too," she said. Jack reached down and smoothed the stray hair off her forehead. "I know you do." A pickup truck rolled in and stopped with a cough and a hiss. Jack popped the hood, steam curling up like breath. He worked with steady hands, loosening clamps, tightening bolts, listening for the truth in the engine's noise. Lily sat at the counter coloring her blueprint with careful strokes. Every few minutes she glanced at Jack, checking him the way he checked an oil level. At noon they ate peanut butter sandwiches on the back step. Heat shimmered off the alley. A gull hopped near the dumpster watching. "Dad," Lily said, mouth full, "do you miss Mom?" Jack swallowed. The bread caught for a moment before it went down. "Yeah," he said, "every day." Lily nodded once, like that settled something. She leaned her head against his arm and stayed there quiet. When the sandwiches were gone, he stood up, wiped his palms on his jeans, and went back into the shop. The hinge on the garage door moved smoothly now. No squeal, no fight, just a clean swing on its pin. Jack Mercer kept working. The hinge on Jack Mercer's garage door swung without complaint now. He finished the last job of the day with the light turning honey-colored through the open bay, then scrubbed his hands in the utility sink until his knuckles stung. Outside, a freight train kept moving slow and heavy, and the air tasted like salt and exhaust. Across town, Vivian Hart lived in a different kind of heat. Her office sat high above the harbor, in a tower of glass, cool as a refrigerator, and just as unforgiving. The carpet was thick enough to swallow footsteps. The walls held framed covers of magazines that praised her for saving lives with science. Vivian rarely looked at them. She stood at the window instead, fingers resting on her phone, watching water that looked calm from this far up. A message waited. "Harper, my hip is burning again." Vivian's reply came quick, the way she moved through everything. "Vivian, I am coming." Slow breaths, 4 and 4 out. After a beat, she typed another line. "Vivian, do you want the cushion?" The answer arrived with a smiley that existed only in words. "Harper, it is fine." Vivian closed her eyes. She knew that line. It was Harper's armor. She left the building, rode down in silence, and stepped into Charleston air that wrapped around her like damp cloth. A black Range Rover waited at the curb. The leather inside smelled of lemon conditioner and money. Harper sat in her chair under the shade of a tree, posture straight, chin lifted. Her long hair was twisted into a low knot. The metal braces along her legs caught the light in pale lines, sleek and clean, dotted with tiny sensors. People walking past tried not to stare. Most failed. Vivian approached with a smile she had learned to make for investors. Up close, it softened. "Hey," Harper said. "How bad?" Vivian asked, keeping her voice light. Harper shrugged. "Like someone is tightening a bolt in my pelvis. Just one turn at a time." Vivian's mouth tightened. She crouched beside Harper and stopped her hands in midair, hovering at the hip strap. "Can I check the fit?" she asked. Harper's eyes slid away to the sidewalk. "If you want." Vivian's fingers traced the edge of the brace where metal met fabric. The spot was warm. Too warm. Harper flinched so faintly it looked like a blink. "We will adjust at home," Vivian said. "Deston," Vivian said. "Sure," Harper replied. They drove with the windows sealed and the air conditioning fighting a losing battle. Vivian watched the road, then watched Harper's reflection in the side window. Harper's face was calm. The muscles around her mouth held tight like she was holding in a sound. Folly Beach stayed ready inside Vivian, waiting for the smallest crack to spill through. Harper had been 8 sunburned at the shoulders, carrying a little surfboard like it was a shield. Vivian had promised she would watch. Vivian had meant it. Then her phone had rung, a partner's voice in her ear, a deadline, a deal that would change everything for her company. Vivian paced near the dunes barefoot in sand that burned. She turned her back to the water to hear better. Mom, Harper called out, bright and proud. "Look." Vivian lifted a hand without lifting her head. "I see you, baby. Be careful." She heard the ocean change before she saw it. The waves got louder, closer. A set rolled in with a hard, sudden force. Harper lost balance. The board snapped sideways. For one terrifying moment, Harper's arms were up, reaching for something that was not there. Vivian ran. The phone slipped from her hand and disappeared into sand. The water was colder than she expected. It yanked at her knees. A lifeguard sliced through foam on a red board. Vivian tried to follow, but the current shoved her offline like she weighed nothing. On shore, Harper lay still. Blood ran from her scalp in a thin stream that turned pink at the edge of the tide. Her eyes were open but unfocused. Vivian dropped to her knees and pressed a shaking hand to Harper's cheek. "Stay with me," she said, voice breaking on every word. "Please." The ambulance smelled like rubber and antiseptic. The siren made the world narrow. Vivian kept talking as if her voice could tie Harper to the earth. At the hospital, the lights were bright enough to feel cruel. Doctors moved fast. They spoke in clean terms that did not match the mess in Vivian's chest. Traumatic brain injury, cervical spinal damage, emergency surgery. 14 hours later, Vivian sat in a plastic chair, staring at a vending machine that flashed "sold out." Her hands would not stop trembling. When the doors finally opened, she stood so quickly her knees nearly gave. Harper lived. That should have been the end of the nightmare. It was the beginning. When Harper woke, her voice came out thin. "Mom?" Vivian leaned over the bed close enough to smell shampoo in Harper's hair. "I am here." Harper blinked, confusion pulling her brows together. "My legs feel sleepy." Vivian tried to answer. Her mouth opened. Nothing came. Harper looked down as if she could see through the blanket. "Why can't I feel them?" Harper whispered. Vivian's silence became its own confession. After that, Vivian did what she knew. She built a war out of money. She called specialists before the swelling went down. She flew doctors in from cities Harper had never visited. She booked appointments that took other families months to get. She signed forms while Harper slept. Hospital rooms blurred into each other, always too cold, always smelling of bleach. Vivian learned the language of imaging and outcomes. She learned how to smile when someone said, "We do not know." Harper learned a different language. She learned how to transfer from chair to bed without tearing skin. She learned how to laugh at jokes she did not find funny, so strangers would not get uncomfortable. She learned how to say "I am okay" in a voice that made adults relax. By the time Axis Orthotics released their newest brace system, Vivian was ready to believe in anything that looked engineered enough. The box arrived in foam like jewelry. Inside was metal, polished and thin, light enough to seem impossible. The technician who fitted it spoke with bright confidence about adaptive pressure and predictive sensors. "The system adjusts in real time," he said, tightening straps. "It learns her movement." Harper stood with Vivian's hands hovering at her elbows, not touching unless asked. The brace made a soft whir, almost like a quiet animal. Harper took one step, then another. It looked smooth from the outside. Harper turned her face toward Vivian and smiled. "See?" Vivian's eyes filled before she could stop them. "How does it feel?" Harper's smile held for a second too long. Then her breath caught. "It is fine," Harper said, voice careful. Vivian knew that careful tone. She lowered herself to Harper's level. "Tell me the truth." Harper stared straight ahead at a poster on the wall, a glossy photo of a runner mid-stride. "The truth is, it hurts. The truth is, I can walk a little and still feel like I am being twisted." Vivian's throat tightened. "We can change it. We can get a different model. We can." Harper finally looked at her. Her eyes were steady, older than 19. "And the truth is, I would rather say it is fine than watch you break apart again." Vivian's hands curled into fists in her lap. "You do not have to protect me." Harper's mouth lifted in a small, tired curve. "Someone has to." They left the clinic with Vivian holding Harper's chair steady as it rolled over the threshold. Outside, heat shimmered off the asphalt. The air smelled like cut grass and exhaust. In the car, Vivian reached over and rested her hand lightly on Harper's forearm. Harper did not pull away. She did not lean in. She simply let the contact exist. Traffic thickened as they merged onto the highway. The sun beat down through the windshield. The air conditioning pushed and pushed. A chime sounded on the dashboard. A small icon lit up. Engine temp. Vivian kept her face still as the needle began to climb toward the red mark. Vivian kept her face still, but her fingers tightened on the wheel. The temperature needle climbed as if it had a mind of its own. The cabin air turned thick. Outside, traffic rolled in slow waves under a white sun. Harper stared at the dashboard, then at Vivian. "Mom." "I see it," Vivian said. The warning chimed again. Vivian flicked the heat up, blasting hot air into the cabin. Harper's brows lifted. "It pulls heat off the engine," Vivian said. She cracked her window. Humid air rushed in, carrying diesel salt and marsh grass. Cars pressed close on both sides. Vivian eased across lanes until she reached the shoulder. The tires hit rough pavement. She stopped and held the wheel for one extra beat, like letting go might make everything tip. Steam slipped out from under the hood. Vivian got out first. Heat hit her in the face. It smelled like scorched rubber and antifreeze. Trucks thundered past, shaking the Range Rover. Harper stayed in her chair, watching her mother, with the quiet focus of someone used to emergencies. Vivian popped the hood. A cloud rose, then cleared enough to show wet metal and a trembling hose. Her phone showed weak signal. A tow company promised time she did not want to spend on the side of a highway. "Can we drive it?" Harper asked. Vivian hesitated. The needle hovered near the red. She pictured Harper sitting in this heat, with her hip on fire. She closed the hood gently. "We go slow," she said. "No air conditioning. Windows open." They rolled back onto the road with the heater on. The wind slapped Vivian's hair against her cheek. Harper stared out at the marsh and the cranes near the port jaw set. Vivian opened maps and searched for the nearest shop. The closest pin had no logo, just a plain name, Mercer Auto and Marine. The neighborhood changed fast after the exit. Glass and brick gave way to corrugated metal and chain-link fences. A train line ran beside the road, and when a freight car clattered past, vibration traveled up through the steering column into Vivian's arms. The Range Rover coughed once, then kept going. Mercer Auto and Marine sat at the end of a short street lined with beat-up pickups. The sign was sun-faded. The building looked patched together. The garage door was half open. A hinge squealed, then went quiet sharp enough to cut through the rumble of the train. Vivian pulled in and killed the engine. Silence settled inside the car, and her shoulders dropped an inch without permission. A man stepped out from the shade of the bay, wiping his hands on a rag that was already black. Tall, lean, sun-worn grease smeared along one forearm like a dark ribbon. His eyes took in the Range Rover first, then Harper's chair, then Vivian's face without surprise. "Afternoon," he said. "You all right?" "The engine temperature spiked," Vivian replied. "It started steaming." He nodded once. "Pop the hood." Vivian did. Steam breathed out again. The man leaned in and listened with his hands on the metal steady, as if he could feel the problem through his fingertips. Inside the shop, a little girl sat on a milk crate at a workbench, coloring on paper spread wide. She looked up, saw the Range Rover, and froze. "Dad," she called clear and bright. "That one looks expensive." The man did not look back. "Hi, Lil." Vivian watched him work and felt irritation rise not at him but at the situation. She moved to Harper. "You okay?" Vivian asked us to stay softly. Harper nodded. Her smile appeared neat and practiced. "Fine." Vivian touched the strap near Harper's hip, careful. Harper's shoulders tightened. The brace made a small metallic click. The man glanced over once. Then he returned to the engine, tightened a clamp, checked a belt, and traced the wet line of coolant. "Upper hose cracked," he said. "Pressure blew it. You ran it hot." "I did not have a choice," Vivian said. He looked at her, not accusing. "I get it." He stepped back. "I can patch it enough to get you home today, but I need it to cool. 10 minutes. Vivian nodded. She checked her phone out of habit and did not open the emails. Harper shifted in her chair, trying to find a position that did not bite. The metal along her legs resisted. Her jaw clenched. She breathed out through her nose, slow. The man looked over again. This time he did not look away quickly. His gaze dropped to the brace, and his expression changed. Not pity, not curiosity. Concentration, like he was watching a door that would not swing right. Harper tried to adjust her footrest. The brace squeaked a thin, dry sound. The man's hand tightened around the rag. He walked toward them slowly and stopped at a respectful distance. He did not speak to Vivian first. He looked at Harper, eyes level. "Can I ask you something?" he said. "You can tell me no." Harper blinked, caught off guard by the calm. Vivian's muscles tensed. If this is about money or some story, we are not interested. The man lifted his free hand palm open. "Not that." He kept his eyes on Harper. "Does that brace pinch when you breathe, like it is fighting you?" Harper's lips parted. She glanced at Vivian, then back at him. "A little," Harper said. Vivian's head snapped toward her. "Harper." Harper's eyes stayed steady. "It does." Vivian turned to the man. "That brace is custom. It is designed by Axis Orthotics. It is not some cheap thing." "I can tell it is expensive," he said. "Expensive things can still be wrong." Vivian's voice sharpened. "Are you a clinician?" "No, ma'am." His smile was quick and tired. "I fix machines." Harper's fingers gripped the armrest. "What do you see?" The man crouched so he was not towering. He kept a small gap between his hands and the metal. "If you let me look," he said, "I can explain. I will not touch without you saying yes." Harper swallowed and nodded once. Vivian started to protest, then stopped. She watched her daughter's face. Harper was scared, but her attention was fierce. The man lifted his eyes. "I need your permission too," he said to Vivian. Vivian did not like being asked, but the words were clean. She nodded stiffly. "Look." He reached out. His fingers traced along the outer joint at Harper's knee with a precision that felt practiced. He pressed lightly at the hinge point, then at the strap above it. He moved to the hip joint and paused, brows drawing together. "This knee is locked forward," he said, "about 15 degrees. Vivian frowned. It is stabilized. Stabilized is fine, he replied. Locked is different. When a person walks, the knee needs to move. Straight at contact, then bend. If it cannot bend, something else has to cheat. Harper's mouth went dry. Cheat how? He tapped his own hip with 2 fingers. Your hip rotates to make up for it. It twists you. That puts load on your lower back. That is why you lean. Harper stared at him. My back hurts. Vivian's eyes narrowed. She never said that. Harper did not look at her mother. I did not want you to panic. The man's gaze stayed on Harper. You lean right, he said quietly. Not much. Just enough to survive the step. Vivian felt heat climb her neck. She had filmed Harper walking. She had told herself the wobble was progress. Harper's voice shook. They told me the pain was normal. He nodded slowly. Sometimes people get used to a bad fit and call it normal, like a hinge that squeals. You stop noticing the sound, but the metal is still grinding. Harper blinked hard, angry at the tears. So, what is the point of it? The sensors? The adjusting? The sensors can only adjust what the frame allows, he said. If the geometry is wrong, the computer just helps you hurt in a smarter way. Vivian inhaled sharply. The words stung because they sounded true. She straightened. You are telling me a team of engineers and surgeons missed something a mechanic can see. The man did not brag. He looked at Harper like Vivian's pride was not the center. I am telling you she is in pain, he said, and this brace is part of it. Harper swallowed, then asked the question Vivian had been circling for years without saying. Can you fix it? Harper said. Even the shop felt still. The little girl at the bench had stopped coloring. The man's face softened. For a second he looked past them toward the back wall, where tools hung in careful rows. I do not know, he said, voice low, but I can try. Vivian did not answer. She watched Harper's hands loosen on the armrest as if pain had been named. Vivian did not answer. She watched Harper's hands loosen on the armrest as if naming the pain had given it edges something real enough to fight. The mechanic rose from his crouch and stepped back. He did not touch the brace again. He went to the Range Rover, tightened the patched hose, and wiped coolant from the metal with the same care he had used on Harper's leg. His daughter stayed quiet at the bench, eyes flicking between the adults like she was reading a room. Vivian cleared her throat. How much for the hose? He glanced at the engine, then at Vivian. 50 for parts. Labor is on me if you drive it straight home and keep the heater on. Vivian hesitated. She was not used to gifts. She was used to invoices that arrived before the service was finished. Thank you, she said stiff. He nodded and reached into a drawer. He wrote on a carbon pad, tore off a receipt, and handed it to her. The name at the top read, Jack Mercer. Jack watched Vivian fold the paper, then he looked at Harper again. If you want me to take a closer look at the brace, I need time. I need a workbench and quiet. Vivian's jaw tightened. Time for what? To tinker with it. Jack did not flinch. To measure it. To understand what it is forcing her body to do. Vivian glanced at Harper. Harper's face had gone blank in the way it did when she was afraid of being told no. You are asking us to leave it here, Vivian said. I am asking for permission to study it, Jack replied. If you say no, that is the end of it. The words were simple. No pressure, no sales pitch. Vivian did not trust that. She had spent years with people who smiled while they let her into contracts. Harper spoke first. Mom. Vivian turned to her. Harper's voice was steady, but her hands had returned to the armrest. Her knuckles were pale. I want him to look. Vivian's instinct was to protect. Protect meant control. Control meant no risks, no strangers, no experiments in a garage that smelled like oil. She looked past Harper to the shop interior. It was plain. Tools lined the wall in rows. Nothing glossy, no marketing posters. The floor was stained. A small fan rattled in the corner. The air held heat and metal and the faint sweetness of some cheap air freshener that could not fully win. Vivian's eyes landed on the little girl again. The child slid off the milk crate and came closer slow, like she knew she was entering adult territory. She held a page of drawings against her chest. Hi, she said to Harper. Harper's mouth lifted. Hi, I'm Lily, the girl added. My dad fixes things. Vivian swallowed. The simplicity of it made her chest ache. Jack glanced at Lily. Go finish your picture, kiddo. Lily did not move right away. She looked at Harper's brace, then at Jack. Is it hurting her? Jack did not answer the child. He kept his eyes on Vivian, waiting. Vivian forced herself to breathe through the tightness in her throat. She wanted to say no. She wanted to gather Harper up and drive back to the kind of clinic where the floors shined and the staff wore name badges. She wanted to trade fear for familiarity. Harper's gaze stayed fixed on her mother's face. There was no pleading, only a tired kind of honesty. I can live with the pain, Harper said quietly. I have, but I do not want to keep pretending it is normal. Vivian felt the words like a bruise. Harper, she said, softening, despite herself, this is not a game. I know, Harper replied. That is why I am asking. Jack's voice came low and even. If I find something, I will show you. You decide what to do with it. Vivian looked at his hands. They were rough-cut stained. Not surgeon hands, not executive hands. Worker hands. Hands that had turned bolts in heat and listened for problems with skin and bone. Do you have any training, she asked. Jack's eyes did not dart, not on paper. Vivian nodded once, as if that settled it. It did not. Her mind ran through headlines and lawsuits and Harper in a hospital bed again, her hair damp with sweat, her eyes asking a question Vivian could never answer. She pictured Folly Beach, the bright day, the phone in her palm, Harper calling out. Vivian shut her eyes for a beat. When she opened them, Harper was still there. Not 8 anymore. 19. Still her child. All right, Vivian said. The word came out tight. One condition. Jack waited. If there is any sign it is unsafe, you stop, Vivian said. Not later, not after one more adjustment. Immediately. Jack nodded. Yes. Vivian held his gaze. And you do not do anything without her consent. Jack nodded again. Yes. Vivian felt her teeth grind. If she gets hurt, I will come for you. Jack did not get defensive. He did not get small. You should, he said. I do not want to hurt her. Harper exhaled, and the sound was so shaky it could have been laughter or relief. Vivian reached down and touched Harper's shoulder. Harper leaned into the touch just a fraction. Jack stepped closer. If you are comfortable leaving it, I can take it off here. If not, you can bring it back another time. Harper looked at Vivian. Vivian held her eyes and gave a slow nod. Here, Harper said. Jack knelt again. He worked with deliberate care, asking before every strap. Is it okay if I loosen this? He asked. Yes, Harper answered. Does this spot hurt when I press? He asked, gentle. Harper's breath hitched. Yes, that one. Jack paused, then backed off. I see it. Vivian watched the process with her hands balled at her sides. She wanted to control the pace, but Jack was already moving like a person who respected limits. He did not rush. He did not ignore Harper's face. When the brace came free, Harper's legs rested quiet. Her body looked lighter and more fragile at the same time. Vivian fought the urge to reach for her, to wrap her in something that could not fail. Jack lifted the brace with both hands. It was sleek, expensive, and cold, like a piece of the future that had forgotten the body it was meant to serve. I will call you, Vivian said. Jack nodded. I will not keep it longer than needed. Vivian guided Harper into the back seat. Harper's chair folded with practiced motions. Vivian drove out of the lot with the heater still blasting. The Range Rover smelled of hot plastic. For the first few miles, neither of them spoke. The highway opened. The marsh stretched wide on one side, green and still. A line of birds stood in shallow water like punctuation marks. Harper's voice finally came. You hate this. Vivian kept her eyes on the road. I do not hate it. Harper waited. Vivian swallowed. I hate not knowing. Harper's hands rested in her lap. She stared at the passing trees. You have known for 11 years, Mom. You have known the doctors do not have an answer. Vivian's grip tightened on the wheel. They have tried. I know, Harper said. The softness in her voice cut deeper than anger. You never stop trying. Vivian felt her throat close. The heater air was too hot. The window air was too wet. Her eyes burned. Harper turned her head slightly. I heard you last night, she added. Vivian's chest locked. Heard what? Harper looked at her mother's reflection in the side window. You were in your office. You were crying. You thought I was asleep. Vivian's mouth opened. No sound came out at first. I was tired, Vivian managed. Harper nodded, letting her keep the lie if she wanted it. Then she said, You cannot buy your way out of this. Vivian flinched as if struck. Harper continued, voice quiet. I know you are trying to fix what happened at the beach. I know you think if you pay enough, if you find the right person, you can erase that moment. Vivian felt the world tilt. Her heart beat hard against her ribs. Harper's eyes stayed on the road ahead. But you cannot erase it. You can only be here now. Vivian's fingers loosened slightly. She did not answer. At home on Kiowa Island, the house was bright and silent. Vivian wheeled Harper inside, then helped her transfer to the couch. Without the brace, Harper's face relaxed. The pain was still there, but it had changed shape, less grinding, more dull. Vivian went to the kitchen, poured water, and brought it back. Harper took a sip and stared into the glass. Do you trust him? Vivian asked. Harper's lips pressed together. I do not know him. Vivian waited. Harper looked up, but I trust how he looked at me, not like I was fragile, not like I was a problem. Vivian's throat tightened again. She sat on the edge of the coffee table close enough to reach Harper's hand. "I am scared," Vivian said. Harper's eyes softened. "Me too." Vivian blinked hard. Her voice dropped. "If he is wrong, I cannot stand watching you get hurt again." Harper looked at her mother's hand, then covered it with her own. Her fingers were warm. "If he is right, I cannot stand going back to pretending nothing is wrong." Vivian closed her eyes for a moment. She could almost hear the ocean. She could almost smell the salt. When she opened her eyes, Harper was watching her steady. Vivian nodded once. "I will call him in the morning," she said. Harper's shoulders dropped, as if she had been holding them up for years. That night, Vivian could not sleep. She lay in a bed that was too large, listening to the faint hum of the air system. The house was quiet enough that small sounds became enormous. A floorboard settling, a distant wave, the soft click of a door latch somewhere down the hall. Vivian got up and walked barefoot to the window. Moonlight lay on the water like a thin sheet of metal. She stood there and let the memory of Folly Beach roll through her without pushing it away. In Harper's room, the bedside lamp was off, but Vivian could see the outline of her daughter's face in the dark. Harper's breathing was slow, not effortless, but calm. Vivian leaned against the doorway and felt her chest crack open with a kind of ache she had avoided for years. Not panic, not strategy, just the raw weight of being a mother who had looked away once and never forgiven herself. She backed out without waking Harper. In North Charleston, Jack Mercer locked the shop door and carried the brace inside like it might shatter. Lily followed him up the narrow stairs, barefoot, sleepy, clutching her drawing. "You really have it," Lily whispered. "Wizard." Jack set the brace on the workbench under a bright lamp. Metal glinted. The sensors caught light like tiny eyes. Lily climbed onto her milk crate and leaned forward. "It looks like a robot." Jack ran his fingers along the hip joint without moving it, just feeling the shape. His eyes narrowed, listening in the way he listened to an engine. "It is supposed to help her," Lily said. "It is," Jack replied. "Or it is supposed to." "It's supposed to." Lily slid her drawing across the bench. The stick figure with triangle legs stared up at him. The big circle at the hip sat bold in pencil. Jack stared at it, then he looked back at the brace. He reached for a screwdriver, then stopped. His hand hovered over the first screw like a man about to cross a line. Lily watched him. "Are you scared?" she asked. Jack's throat tightened. He did not lie to her. "Yeah," he said. Lily nodded as if fear made sense. "You always measure first," she reminded him. Jack exhaled slowly. He set the screwdriver down and pulled out a tape measure and a caliper instead. He began at the knee, then the angles, then the distance between joints. He wrote numbers in a notebook stained with grease at the edges. Outside, a train rattled past, shaking the windows. The brace did not move. Jack's hands did. Lily yawned, then rested her chin on the bench. "Tell her you will be careful," she murmured, voice thick with sleep. Jack kept measuring. "I will," he said. He looked at the brace again, then at the notes, then at Lily's drawing. The lamp buzzed softly. The room smelled of metal and the faint sweetness of Lily's shampoo. Jack lifted the screwdriver once more, and this time he set the tip into the first screw head. He turned it slowly, listening to the tiny sound of metal giving way. The screw turned with a dry whisper, then released. Jack set it in a tray, then another, until the brace began to come apart in pieces that looked too clean to belong in his shop. He moved slowly, like the metal might jump and bite if he rushed. The lamp over the workbench cast a hard circle of light. Outside the thin window, the train noise faded, and the night settled into a humid hush. Lily watched until her eyelids could not stay open. She slid off the milk crate and padded toward the couch in the corner, where an old blanket waited. Half asleep, she pointed at Jack's notebook. "You're writing like a doctor," she mumbled. Jack did not look up. "Doctor's right. I measure." Lily nodded as if that made perfect sense. "Measure her safe," she whispered, and then she was gone into sleep. Jack worked alone. He laid the brace pieces out in order the way he laid out engine parts when he needed to remember what belonged where. Hinge, joint, strap, sensor housing. He ran his fingers along edges and contact points. A spot near the ankle had a tiny burr barely visible but rough enough to scrape skin if it met it wrong. He circled it in the notebook. He found the knee joint and held it in his palm, turning it as if it were a door latch he could not trust. The range was tight, too tight. The lock point felt proud, like it wanted to prove its strength. Jack pictured Harper standing trying to move with this thing refusing to bend when a body needed it to. He closed his eyes for a moment, and Folly Beach rushed in cold and loud. Evan's voice threaded through the memory thin and steady. "Do not let them hear accept your fate and think that is kindness. Jack opened his eyes. He set his jaw and reached for a pencil. He drew an arc for a knee and marked angles the way he marked timing on a crankshaft. Straight at contact, bend through swing, extend again. The geometry had to cooperate, not fight. He wrote down numbers, then crossed them out, then wrote new ones. He did not trust the first answer. Near midnight, he boiled water on a hot plate and made instant noodles. He ate standing up, eyes still on the brace. The air in the apartment smelled of metal, warm plastic, and cheap broth. His shoulders ached, his fingers cramped. He kept going. By 3 in the morning, the first shape of something new sat on the bench. It was not pretty. Jack did not care. He cared about how it moved. He swapped a heavy component for a lighter one he had salvaged from an old marine part. He trimmed bulk wherever it did nothing but add weight. He sanded down edges until the surface felt like glass under his thumb. He cut new padding and wrapped it tight where the brace would meet skin. He tested every joint with his hands before he ever thought about putting it on a person. Open, close, flex, return. The hinge should not squeal. It should not resist. It should do its job and get out of the way. At sunrise, he washed his face, changed his shirt, and went downstairs to the shop. He brewed coffee strong enough to taste like punishment. He stared at his phone until his eyes blurred. He typed a message to Vivian and erased it, typed again and erased it again. Finally, he called. Vivian picked up on the second ring. Her voice sounded like she had not slept. "Mr. Mercer." "Jack," he said. His mouth felt dry. "I have something to try, only if Harper still wants it." There was a small silence. Jack could hear her breathing. "She does," Vivian said. "She has not stopped talking about it." Jack swallowed. "Bring her when you can. I want to fit it slowly." Vivian's tone sharpened. "If anything looks wrong, we stop." "Yes," Jack said. "I stop." They arrived mid-morning. The Range Rover rolled into the lot with the windows down. Vivian climbed out first. Face-controlled posture straight. Harper sat in her chair by the rear door, her expression calm but her eyes alert. Lily stood behind Jack in the bay holding a paper cup of water with both hands. She peered around him like a small animal checking for danger. Harper noticed her and smiled. "Hi, Lily." Lily's shoulders eased a fraction. "Hi." Vivian did not waste time with small talk. "Show me." Jack led them to the workbench. The prototype lay there lighter and simpler, with fewer glossy panels and fewer things that existed only to impress. Vivian's eyes scanned it like she was reading Risk. "This is not Axis," she said. "No," Jack replied. "It is mine." Harper leaned forward. "Is it lighter?" Jack lifted it with both hands. "Yeah." He looked at Harper. "Are you ready?" Harper's fingers tightened on her armrest, then relaxed. "Yes." Jack knelt. He did not reach in fast. He let Harper see every move. "Is it okay if I slide this under your calf?" "Yes," Harper said. "Okay if I adjust the knee strap?" "Yes." Vivian hovered close enough to step in her hands, curled at her sides like she was holding herself back from grabbing control. Jack positioned the brace and secured the straps. He checked for pinching at the ankle, then at the knee, then at the hip. He pressed lightly at contact points and watched Harper's face. "How does that feel?" he asked. Harper breathed in and out. "Different." "Different good or different scary?" Harper's mouth twitched. "Both." Jack nodded. "That is fair." He stood and offered his hand, then stopped himself. He lowered it. "I will not hold you unless you ask." Harper looked at Vivian. Vivian's eyes were bright and hard at the same time. "I can do it," Harper said. She placed her hands on the chair arms and pushed. Her shoulders rose, her core engaged. She stood. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. She was upright, steady, her jaw clenched like she was bracing for the usual spear of pain. Then her eyes widened. "It is lighter," Harper whispered. Jack watched her knees. The brace moved with her weight shift. The joint flexed a little, as if it remembered what it was for. Vivian stepped closer. "Harper, if it hurts, sit down." Harper nodded. She kept breathing. Jack spoke softly. "Try one step, small." Harper shifted her weight forward. The brace responded. Her foot touched the concrete. Her face held waiting. No scream, no collapse. A small sound escaped her, half laugh, half disbelief. "I did it." Vivian's hand flew to her mouth. Her eyes shone, then hardened again as she forced herself to stay vigilant. "Slow," she said. "Slow." Harper took a second step. Her knee bent more this time. Jack watched the angle and felt a cautious lift in his chest. Harper's smile grew just a little. "Mom." Vivian's voice broke. "I see you." Harper took a third step. The sound was tiny, just a scraped metal brushing where it should not. Jack heard it immediately. His heart dropped. Harper's face changed in an instant. Her breath hitched. Pain flooded in so fast it looked like it had slammed a door. "Ah," she cried out. Her ankle buckled. She fell toward Jack. Jack caught her under the arms before her head could hit the bench. Vivian was there, in the same second, hands on Harper's shoulders, pulling her close. Harper gasped, teeth clenched, eyes squeezed shut. "Stop," Vivian snapped. "Stop right now." Jack lowered Harper into the chair, hands shaking. He knelt at the ankle and saw the blood. A thin red line at first, then more. The metal joint had kissed skin and cut it open. Harper let out a sound that was pure frustration, not fear. Tears spilled down her cheeks. Jack's stomach turned. He grabbed a clean cloth and pressed it gently to the wound. "I am sorry," he said, voice thick. "I am so sorry." Vivian's eyes went cold. She looked at the blood, then at Jack. "You hurt her." Jack did not defend himself. He kept pressure on the cloth and checked Harper's face for dizziness. "It was a burr," he said, forcing calm into his voice even as panic roared. "I missed it. I should not have missed it." Harper shook her head, slightly jaw tight. "It is not deep." Vivian glared. "That does not matter." Lily stood frozen by the bench, her water cup trembling. "Dad," she whispered. Jack glanced at her, then back at Harper. "Go get the first aid kit, Lily." Lily ran. Vivian helped Harper breathe through the pain. Her voice was low, controlled, the way she spoke to Harper during procedures. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Harper nodded, eyes, wet lips pressed tight. Lily returned with the kit and set it down, then backed away like she was afraid to be in the wrong place. Jack cleaned the cut-applied ointment and wrapped it with gauze. His hands moved fast, but careful. The whole time he kept thinking, "I did this." When the bleeding slowed, Vivian straightened. "We are leaving." Jack looked up, face pale. "I understand." Vivian's voice tightened. "You promised you would stop if it was unsafe." "I did stop," Jack said. The words tasted bitter. "The moment it happened." Vivian's eyes flashed. "The moment it happened was too late." Jack nodded. He could not argue with that. Harper wiped her face with the back of her hand. Her voice came out thin. "Mom, it was an accident." Vivian rounded on her. "You are bleeding." Harper lifted her chin. "I have bled before." Vivian's shoulders rose, then fell as if the air had been punched out of her. She looked suddenly tired, older than she wanted to be. "We cannot keep doing this," she said, more to herself than to anyone else. Jack stood slowly. "I do not want to make her a test," he said. "I want to make her comfortable. I want to make her safe." Vivian's gaze cut into him. "Then do not touch her again." She turned to Lily, then back to Jack. "And do not contact us." Lily flinched as if Vivian had slapped the air. Vivian moved to the car. Harper stayed for a second, hands on her chair wheels, breathing hard. She looked at Jack, eyes glossy. Jack's voice broke. "Harper, I am sorry." Harper nodded once. "I know." Vivian opened the door. "Harper." Harper turned her chair toward the car, then stopped and looked back at Jack. Her eyes held his for a long moment, and the hurt in her face was real, but it was not the only thing there. "Do not quit," she said quietly. Vivian's head snapped around. "Harper." Harper did not look at her mother. "Please." Jack's chest tightened until it hurt. He could not speak. He only nodded. Harper rolled into the car. Vivian shut the door a little too hard. The Range Rover backed out and drove away, tires crunching gravel, leaving heat and silence behind. The shop felt larger after they left, emptier. Jack stood at the bench staring at the small blood stain on the concrete where Harper had stepped. It looked wrong there too, human for a place that smelled like oil. He picked up the prototype and set it down gently like an apology. His fingers were still sticky. Lily walked over slow. She looked at the stain, then up at Jack's face. Her eyes were wide. "Are you in trouble?" she asked. Jack swallowed. "Maybe." Lily's voice shrank. "Because you tried to help." Jack turned away and scrubbed his hands at the sink until the water ran pink, then clear. He braced himself on the edge and stared at the drain. "I thought I could do it," he said, mostly to the faucet. "I thought I saw it." Lily stood behind him, small and stubborn. "You did see it," she said. "You just got one sharp part." Jack let out a breath that sounded like it hurt. He shut off the water and leaned his forehead against the cool metal of the sink. The shop was quiet except for the fan and the distant rattle of a train. In the apartment upstairs, he sat at the workbench again. The prototype lay in pieces. He stared at the ankle joint, at the tiny burr that had drawn blood. He sanded it down until his fingers felt nothing but smooth. It did not erase what happened. He opened his phone and hovered over Vivian's number. His thumb trembled. He typed a message, then deleted it. Typed another and deleted that too. A soft knock came at the doorframe. Lily stood there, holding a mug of warm milk with both hands. Her hair was still damp from a hurried bath. She offered it to him like it was a tool. "You did not eat," she said. Jack took the mug. His hands shook enough that a drop spilled onto the table. Lily watched his face with the seriousness of someone twice her age. "You're sad," she said. Jack tried to speak. His throat closed. He shook his head once, but it was a lie, and both of them knew it. "I hurt her," he managed. Lily climbed onto the milk crate and sat close. She looked at the brace parts, then at Jack. "Did you mean to?" "No," Jack said. The word came out rough. Lily nodded. "Then it was a mistake. You fix mistakes." Jack stared at her. His eyes burned. Lily lowered her voice. "Uncle Evan never told you to stop," she added. Jack's breath caught. He looked away fast, but Lily's words had already landed. From the table, Jack's phone buzzed. He flinched and grabbed it. An unknown number lit the screen, then resolved into a message. "Harper, my ankle is okay. Mom is mad. I get it. Please do not give up on me." Jack stared at the words until his vision blurred. A sound slipped out of him, quiet and broken. He pressed a hand to his mouth and tried to breathe. Lily leaned closer. "Is that her?" Jack nodded, unable to speak. Lily looked at the brace again, then at her drawing taped to the wall. The circle at the hip stared back like an answer waiting to be used. "Turn the light back on," Lily said. Jack wiped his face with the heel of his hand. He set the mug down and stood. For a second he just hovered there, caught between the weight of harm and the pull of that message. Then he crossed the room and flipped the switch. The lamp snapped on. The workbench brightened. Metal glinted. Pencil marks showed sharp. Jack sat back down, pulled the notebook close, and opened to a clean page. He began to write. The pen scratched across the page in short bursts, then stopped. Jack stared at the numbers, then at the brace parts spread on the bench. Under the lamp, everything looked too sharp. Lily slept on the couch, curled under a blanket with one bare foot sticking out. Jack kept his voice low as if sound could bruise. He wrote a heading, "Contact Points." Under it, he listed what he knew: where Harper's skin had split, where the straps left prints, where the metal had kissed flesh and turned it into blood. He sketched the ankle joint and circled it twice, then drew a second sketch showing the angle of the foot when weight landed. He wrote, then erased, then wrote again until the paper thinned. When the sun rose, it came in pale through the window and turned the metal the color of cold milk. Jack went downstairs, splashed water on his face, and opened the shop like nothing had happened. He worked on a boat motor with steady hands while his mind kept replaying Harper's gasp. His phone rang at 9. Vivian's name lit the screen. Jack answered at once. "Mrs. Hart." Her voice was controlled. "Harper's cut is clean. It will heal." Jack swallowed. "I am glad." A pause. "She asked me to call you. She wants to try again." "I do not." "I understand," Jack said. "If we do this, my doctor is present," Vivian added. "And if she gets hurt again, there will be consequences I cannot stop." "I hear you," Jack replied. "Give me 2 days." "Fine," Vivian said, and ended the call. Across the bridge on Kiowa, Vivian stood in her kitchen with the phone still in her hand. The marble counter felt cold under her palm. Harper sat at the table, one leg propped on a cushion, the bandage white against her skin. "He sounded scared," Harper said. "He should be," Vivian replied too quickly. Harper traced the edge of the bandage with a fingertip. "Mom, you cannot scare me out of wanting it." Vivian's eyes flashed. "Wanting does not make it safe." Harper looked up. Her voice stayed calm, but the words had weight. Neither did 11 surgeries. Vivian turned away, throat tight. She reached for a bottle of water and did not drink it. "Noah will come," she said. Harper's mouth tightened. "He will hate this." Vivian's gaze stayed on the sink. "I need someone who has seen what happens when things go wrong." Harper's voice softened. "So do I." Vivian finally looked at her. Harper's expression held fear, yes, but also something sharper, a refusal to be talked back into silence. Vivian nodded once more to herself, then to Harper. Back in North Charleston, Jack sat still for a moment, listening to the shop wake up downstairs. Then he stood and moved. The next 2 days became a narrow tunnel. He rebuilt the prototype with different bones. He swapped the ankle housing for rounded aircraft-grade aluminum, lighter and less likely to bite. He layered medical silicone over every place metal could meet skin. He added a small spring at the knee so the joint would not slam to its stop. He strapped it to his own leg and walked across the shop floor, slow counting steps. The brace pulled at his calf. The strap pressure reminded him that a body was not a test rig. He shifted his weight and listened. No scrape, no squeal, just the quiet click of movement. On the second night, Lily sat on the floor with her drawing pad watching him work. Her hair was damp from a bath. The room smelled of soap and metal. "You look tired," she said. Jack wiped sweat from his forehead. "I am." Lily colored the big circle at the hips on her stick figure. "When my bike wobbles, you do not hold the wheel. You hold the seat." Jack paused, then nodded, as if filing it away. Go to bed, Lil. She went, but her words stayed. On the third morning, Vivian arrived with Harper and Dr. Noah Klein. The doctor stepped out wearing a crisp shirt that looked too clean for the heat. His eyes took in the shop, then landed on Jack's hands. You are the mechanic, Dr. Klein said. Yes, sir. You understand that modifying a medical device without a license can ruin a patient, the doctor replied. Vivian's voice was tight. Noah, we are here to observe. Harper rolled up beside her mother. Her ankle was wrapped in a thin bandage. She gave Jack a small nod. Lily hovered near the bench watching the doctor like he was a man who might steal something. Jack led them to the workbench. The new brace lay there, simpler, lighter, without the glossy panels. The silicone padding caught the light with a dull shine. Dr. Klein pressed a thumb into the padding. He traced the alignment marks Jack had scratched into the metal. This does not match standard orthotic geometry. It matches what she needs to do to stand, Jack said. Harper's jaw tightened. I still have a body, she said. Dr. Klein's expression softened by a fraction. That is why we do this carefully. Jack knelt in front of Harper. He asked before every touch. Is it okay if I lift your calf? Yes. Is it okay if I close this strap? Yes. He checked the ankle first, then the knee, then the hip. He adjusted tension a quarter inch at a time, watching Harper's face more than the hardware. How is your breathing? He asked. Better, Harper whispered. Jack stepped back. When you are ready. Harper pushed up from her chair. Vivian's hand hovered near her elbow. Jack stayed close but did not touch. Harper stood. Her shoulders rose, then settled. She took a breath, eyes fixed on the floor like the concrete might move under her. One step, Jack said softly. Harper moved forward. Her foot contacted the ground. The knee joint flexed. The ankle cleared without scraping. Harper's eyes widened. Vivian's lips parted. She did not speak. Harper took a second step. The brace moved cleanly. Her face showed effort, not panic. Dr. Klein leaned in, watching the knee angle. Hold, he murmured. Harper shifted weight for a third step. Her hips rotated and Jack saw the subtle change. The hip assembly pushed inward under load. The alignment slid. Jack lifted a hand. Stop. Harper tried to freeze, but the pressure surged into her pelvis. She gasped a sharp sound pulled from her. My hip, she said, voice breaking. It hurts. Vivian moved in and caught her. Sit now. Harper dropped back into the chair, hands shaking. Tears sprang to her eyes, more anger than fear. Jack crouched at the hip joint, fingers hovering, not touching. He could see the shift, a tiny betrayal that turned his work into a weapon. It is pressing into your pelvis, he said, sick. Dr. Klein's voice turned hard. Unstable load path. This is why standards exist. Jack looked up. I tried to distribute it. Trying does not protect her, the doctor replied. Harper wiped her face. It is not his fault, she said, the words thin and stubborn. Vivian's eyes flashed. It is his fault. He chose to do this. She reached for her phone. Her hand shook once, then steadied. I am calling my attorney. The shop went still. Lily's cup slipped, and water splashed onto the floor. No one moved to clean it. Mrs. Hart. Jack said, voice hoarse, please, let me check the joint. Let me see exactly what shifted. Vivian did not look at him. You have seen enough. Harper caught her mother's sleeve. Mom, please. Vivian turned, and for a moment grief broke through the polish. Then it hardened again. No, Vivian said. Do not call us. Do not contact my daughter. If you try, you will hear from lawyers. Harper's eyes filled. She reached for Jack's hand, fast, desperate. Her fingers were warm and shaking. Promise me, she whispered. Jack's throat closed. He nodded once. Vivian pulled Harper's chair back and turned toward the car. Dr. Klein followed. Lily stood near the bench, lips parted. She is still a person, Lily blurted. Vivian paused at the door and looked back. Her eyes flicked to Lily, then to Jack. For a second, something softened. Then she turned away. The Range Rover backed out and disappeared down the street. Jack stayed on his knees beside the empty space where Harper had stood. The concrete felt cold through his jeans. He stared at the water spreading from Lily's spilled cup, reflecting the fluorescent lights like a shallow tide. He reached for his phone with shaking fingers, then stopped. Vivian's words rang in his head, sharp and final. Jack set the phone down and covered his face with both hands. In the quiet, he could hear the brace on the bench settling, metal clicking faintly, as if it had lost its balance too. The brace on the bench settled with a faint click, like something shifting inside itself. Jack stayed still, hands over his face, breathing into his palms. The shop smelled of warm metal and spilled water. The fan in the corner rattled on, stubborn and useless against the heat. Balance, he thought. He lifted his head and looked at the puddle on the concrete. The overhead lights turned it into a thin mirror. In the reflection, the ceiling lights wavered with every tiny vibration from the tracks outside. He stood and walked to the bench. The hip joint sat there, quiet, innocent looking, the kind of part that failed without warning. Jack did not touch it at first. He just stared, forcing himself to see it the way he saw a cracked belt or a misaligned pulley. Not the knee, not the ankle, the hip. He picked up his notebook and flipped back through pages filled with angles and measurements. The math was clean. The outcome was not. He imagined Harper standing her weight, shifting her body, doing what bodies do, and the brace deciding to push in the wrong direction. "It is pressing into your pelvis." He heard her voice again. "My hip, it hurts." Jack's throat tightened. He slammed the notebook shut and stepped away from the bench as if distance could cool his head. Lily's small footsteps sounded behind him. "Dad," she said. Jack turned. Lily stood in the bay doorway, hair pulled into a messy ponytail, cheeks flushed. She held a paper towel and dabbed at the spill with careful little presses. "You should not be cleaning that," Jack said. Lily glanced up, eyes bright with anger she did not know how to name. "Nobody else will." Jack did not argue. He watched her mop the water into the towel like she was trying to fix the whole day with 2 hands and a square of paper. When she finished, she tossed the towel into the trash and walked to the bench. The brace parts looked huge beside her. "Is she mad?" Lily asked. "Yes," Jack said. "Is she hurt?" Lily asked. Jack swallowed. "Not badly, but I caused pain, twice." Lily's mouth tightened. She stared at the hip joint like it had offended her personally. "Then you fixed the part that did it." Jack let out a short, bitter laugh. "It is not that easy." Lily pointed at the hip assembly. "That thing is the boss, right? It pushed wrong." Jack stared at her finger. It shifted under load. Lily frowned. "So it is not strong enough." "It is strong," Jack said. "That is the problem. Strong in the wrong place." Lily leaned closer. "When my bike wobbles, you told me not to grab the handlebars. You told me to hold the seat." Jack froze. Lily kept talking, unaware she had just twisted something loose in his head. "Because the seat is where my weight is. You said the seat is where it matters." Jack's eyes moved from Lily's face to the brace, then back to Lily's drawing taped to the wall above the bench. The stick figure, the triangle legs, the big circle at the hips with balance, written in crooked pencil. The seat, the center. He felt his heart speed up, a rush that carried fear and hope together. His hands moved on their own. He pulled the brace toward him and started tracing lines on the metal with a grease pencil. He drew an arrow from the knee up toward the hip, then circled the hip socket hard enough to leave a thick mark. Lily watched. "What are you doing?" Jack spoke slowly, like he was explaining to himself. "Everything is trying to control the knee. The knee is not the boss. The knee just follows." Lily blinked. "Then who is the boss?" Jack tapped the hip circle on her drawing. "That." He grabbed a roll of string from a drawer, then a small weight, a nut from a bolt bin. He tied the nut to the string and held it up so it hung like a plumb line. He positioned it over the brace and let it settle. The string cut straight down through the air and landed near the knee area. Jack stared at it, then shook his head hard. "That is where the brace thinks her weight is," he said. Lily's voice went small, "but her weight is not there." "No," Jack said, and his voice caught. "Her weight is here." He shifted the plumb line to the hip joint. The string dropped straight down over the center of the brace's structure. He pictured Harper standing, her torso, her ribs, the place where breath lived, all resting on a line that should fall through her hips. If the brace forced that line down through her knee, her body would fight it every second. No wonder she wobbled. No wonder she twisted. No wonder she hurt. Jack rubbed a hand over his mouth. "It is the center of gravity," he whispered. Lily stared at him. "Gravity is the thing that makes stuff fall." Jack nodded. "And it is the thing that makes people walk." He backed up from the bench, chest tight, as if he needed space for the idea to unfold. The whole brace design, the original, his first version, his second version, they were all built like a machine that expected a knee to carry the world. A person did not move like that. A person moved from the hip. Jack's eyes burned. He blinked hard once, twice, then grabbed the notebook again. He flipped to a fresh page and wrote in big letters. "Center at hip." He underlined it so hard the pen dented the paper. Lily watched him with the solemn patience of a kid who had seen adults break and put themselves back together in quiet ways. "Do you have to start over?" she asked. Jack's shoulders rose, then fell. "Yeah." Lily nodded once. "Okay." He expected her to ask if that was bad. She did not. She climbed onto the milk crate and took out her colored pencils. Jack sat and stared at the brace as if it were a map to a place he had been trying to reach in the dark. Then he began taking it apart. He stripped the hip assembly down to the bare frame. He laid out components and pushed aside anything built for show. He measured, then measured again. He drew a new structure that shifted the load path upward, a cradle that would carry weight through the hips and distribute it down both legs without forcing the pelvis to take a punch. The work swallowed hours. He closed the shop for 2 days and put a handwritten sign on the door, "Family Emergency. Back soon." Customers honked. One man pounded on the door. Jack did not answer. He could not afford to lose business, but he could not afford another failure more. He drove to a supply store near the port and bought sheets of aluminum aviation grade light and strong. He bought silicone tubing medical grade soft enough to protect skin. The total made his stomach drop. He swiped his card anyway. On the drive back, he stared at the road and thought of the envelope stack under his coffee mug. He thought of Lily's school field trip permission slip he had not signed yet because the fee was due. He kept driving. At home, he cleared the bench and started again. He cut new pieces, filed edges down until his fingertips felt only smooth. He drilled holes, careful not to stress the metal. He built a hip-centered frame that did not shove. It carried. He added a small shock element that allowed the brace to absorb impact instead of sending it straight into Harper's pelvis. Every time he tightened a bolt, he listened, not to the sound of the tool, but to the feeling in his hands. If something resisted too much, he backed off and changed it. He did not trust force. Lily brought him sandwiches and sat nearby, drawing new versions of her stick figure. The circles at the hips got bigger. The lines got cleaner. She erased and redrew without frustration, as if she had been born knowing iteration. On the third night, rain came and hit the tin roof in a steady drumming. The air cooled a little. The shop felt like a cave lit by one buzzing lamp. Jack's shoulders ached. His eyes felt full of sand. He rubbed them and kept working. He strapped the new frame to his own legs to test the load path. The brace felt awkward at first, foreign. He stood up and shifted weight. The hip cradle took the load. His pelvis did not feel pushed. It felt supported. He took a step. His knee bent naturally. He took another step. He almost smiled, then stopped himself. It was not proof. It was a hint. He walked across the shop floor slow. The concrete was uneven in places, old and cracked. The brace responded without biting. He turned, walked back, and heard the faintest, cleanest click of a joint doing its job. He took a faster step, then stumbled. His foot caught. He fell hard on one knee and hissed through his teeth. Lily shot up from her blanket. "Dad." "I am okay," Jack said, breath tight. He pressed a hand to his knee and stood slowly. The pain was sharp but honest. It belonged to him. He adjusted the ankle clearance and tried again. He fell again, less hard. He got up again. Sweat ran down his neck. His shirt clung to his back. Lily watched wide-eyed. "Why do you keep falling?" she asked. Jack tightened a strap and exhaled. "Because falling tells you the truth." The next morning, his phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. His heart jumped before he even read it. "Harper, does it still hurt your head when you think too hard?" Jack stared at the screen, startled into a laugh that came out rough. "Jack, sometimes?" "Harper, mine hurts too. Mom is not sleeping. Dr. Klein keeps calling. I do not care. I want to try again." "If you do." Jack's throat tightened. He typed, then paused, then typed again. "Jack, I am working. I am being careful." "Harper, good." A beat, then another message. "Harper, do you ever feel like the room tilts?" Jack looked at the brace. He looked at Lily asleep on the couch, her hair fanned across the pillow. He looked at his hands, black under the nails. "Jack, yeah." "Harper, me too. I want it to stop tilting." Jack set the phone down carefully like it was fragile. He worked another full day. He built the frame lighter, smoother, more forgiving. He covered every contact point in silicone and added a layer of soft padding where bone sat close to skin. He made the hip cradle adjustable in tiny increments. He drilled alignment marks so he could return to the same fit every time. On the 7th night, he stopped moving. The brace sat on the bench, not flashy, not sleek, but solid and clean. It looked like something made to carry a person, not impress a room. Jack stared at it until his eyes blurred. He lifted it, feeling the weight of the balance. It did not pull forward. It did not sag backward. It sat centered in his hands. Lily woke and patted over, rubbing her eyes. She looked at the brace and then at Jack's face. "Is it done?" she asked. Jack swallowed. "I think so." Lily leaned closer. "Is it safe?" Jack did not give her a promise he could not keep. "It is safer," he said. Lily nodded, accepting the honesty. She reached out and touched the silicone padding with one finger. "It feels nice," she murmured. Jack set the brace down and picked up his phone. His thumb hovered over Vivian's number. He could still hear her voice from the shop doorway. "Do not call us. Do not contact my daughter." He looked at the brace again. He looked at Harper's last message. I want it to stop tilting. Jack breathed in then out. He pressed call. Vivian answered after several rings. Her voice was cold, exhausted, and sharp. Mr. Mercer. Jack's mouth went dry. Mrs. Hart. I rebuilt it. From the center. I know you told me not to call. Silence long enough that he could hear the rain start again, tapping the window. Jack held the phone tight. I am asking for one more fitting, he said quietly. With your doctor there. With you there. And if it hurts her, I stop. Immediately. Vivian's silence held so long that Jack thought the call had dropped. He listened to the faint hum on the line, his own breathing loud in his ear. Mrs. Hart, he said again, quieter. A soft sound came through, not a word. Vivian exhaled, shaky and restrained, like she was letting out air she had been holding for days. You rebuilt it, she said. Yes, Jack replied. From the hip, from where the weight actually lives. Another pause. Jack could picture her standing in her kitchen phone, in hand watching water ripple in a glass. He could picture Harper on the couch, her bandage bright against her skin, eyes open in the dark. Vivian's voice tightened. You hurt her twice. I know, Jack said. I am not asking you to forget that. You are asking me to risk her again. Jack stared at the brace on the bench. The silicone caught the lamplight with a dull glow. I am asking for one fitting, he said. Only if she wants it. Vivian did not answer right away. When she spoke again, her tone had changed. It was flatter, less like a blade, and more like something worn down. I am bringing Dr. Klein, she said. Good, Jack replied. And I am recording everything Vivian added. That is fine, Jack said. I want you to see it. A sound on the other end, the faint shift of fabric, as if Vivian had sat down hard. One fitting, she said. If she says stop, you stop. If Noah says stop, you stop. If I say stop, you stop. Yes, Jack said. Vivian's voice dropped. If she bleeds again, you will not get another call. Jack swallowed. I understand. The line clicked. The call ended. Jack stood still with the phone in his hand until Lily's small voice came from the couch. Did she say yes? Lily asked. Jack turned. Lily sat upright under her blanket hair, messy eyes heavy with sleep but sharp with concern. She said one fitting, Jack answered. Lily slid off the couch and padded to the bench. She touched the brace with one finger, then pulled her hand back like she was afraid of changing it. Jack took a slow breath and forced himself to move. He cleaned the workbench again, not because it needed it, but because his hands needed something steady to do. He laid out clean cloths, gauze, and the first aid kit where they could be reached fast. He checked the brace straps twice, then a third time. He set the caliper beside his notebook and placed a pencil on top, like a promise to measure, not guess. In Kiowa, Vivian sat at her kitchen table with the phone face down. The house was quiet except for the low hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of waves through closed glass. Harper rolled into the doorway. She moved slowly, careful with her ankle, and stopped when she saw her mother's posture. Vivian's shoulders were tight. Her hands were folded fingers laced so hard her knuckles were white. You called him, Harper said. Vivian did not look up at first. He called me. Harper waited, then Vivian lifted her eyes. The polish was still there, but something underneath was raw. I said yes, she admitted. Harper's breath left her in a soft rush. She wheeled closer, then stopped, giving her mother space the way she had learned to do with people who were about to crack. Vivian's voice turned sharp again, protective by reflex. One fitting. Harper nodded. One. Vivian stared at her daughter's bandaged ankle. You are not brave, she said, and the words sounded like anger but carried fear. You are stubborn. Harper's mouth twitched. I can be both. Vivian looked down at her hands. I cannot watch you get hurt again. Harper's voice softened. I cannot watch you keep trying to fix me like I am a broken deal. Vivian flinched, as if the words had landed exactly where they were aimed. Harper continued, quiet but firm. I am not asking you to stop being scared. I am asking you to be scared and still be here. Vivian's throat tightened. She looked up and her eyes shone. She blinked hard, as if blinking could keep tears from becoming real. I will be there, Vivian said. Dr. Klein arrived at Vivian's house before noon. He wore the same crisp shirt, his hair neat, his expression controlled. He carried a small medical bag, not because he thought it would help the brace, but because having tools made him feel less helpless. I am strongly opposed, he said as they walked to the car. I know, Vivian replied. He glanced at her. You are still doing it. Vivian's jaw tightened. My daughter asked for it. Dr. Klein's face shifted a flicker of sympathy under the professional sternness. Then we minimize risk. When they reached North Charleston, the air smelled of diesel and salt. The shop's sign was still faded. The street still looked like a place where expensive cars did not belong. Vivian parked and sat for a second with her hands on the steering wheel. Harper watched her mother's profile. "You can say stop at any moment," Vivian said. Harper nodded. "I know." Vivian looked at her then. "Not to protect me," she added, "to protect you." Harper's voice was steady. "I will." They stepped into the garage bay, and the temperature changed. It was warmer than outside, thick with the smell of metal and oil. The fan rattled in the corner. A train passed in the distance, the low vibration traveling through the concrete. Jack stood by the workbench. His shirt was clean but worn. His hands looked scrubbed, but the lines of grease never fully left the skin. Lily stood near him, holding a small box of bandages like she was on duty. Dr. Klein entered, last eyes scanning the shop, with the cold focus of a man who had spent a career watching mistakes happen. Jack nodded once at him. "Doctor?" Dr. Klein nodded back short. "Mr. Mercer." Vivian stepped forward, phone already held up. "I am recording." Jack kept his gaze on Harper. "That is fine." Harper rolled closer to the bench. Jack's eyes went to her ankle bandage. "How is it?" he asked. "Fine," Harper said, then corrected herself with a small breath. "It stung yesterday." "It is fine today." Jack nodded. "Thank you for telling me." He lifted the brace with both hands and set it on the bench so Harper could see it. It was lighter, cleaner, with a structure that hugged the hips like a cradle instead of a clamp. The silicone padding was smooth, matty, and thick at the places where bone would otherwise take the hit. Dr. Klein leaned in. He touched the hip assembly, then the knee joint, then the ankle clearance. He did not smile. He did not scoff. His brows drew together in quiet calculation. "This is unconventional," he said. Jack replied without heat. "It is centered." Dr. Klein looked at him. "Centered where?" Jack pointed to Harper's hips, not touching her. "There." Harper watched the two men's shoulders tense. Vivian stood close enough to feel Harper's breath. Jack knelt in front of Harper. His voice dropped, careful and direct. "Harper, if you want to stop at any time, say it." "I stop." Harper nodded once. "Okay." Jack held up the first strap. "Is it okay if I lift your calf?" "Yes," Harper said. Jack lifted gently and slid the brace into place. He checked alignment marks, then paused. "Is it okay if I secure the ankle?" "Yes." He tightened it a fraction, then tested with 2 fingers between strap and skin. "How is that pressure?" "Okay," Harper said. Jack moved to the knee. "Okay if I secure this?" "Yes." He did the same, slow, precise, watching her face. Then he moved to the hip cradle. The air in the shop felt tighter, as if it had turned into rope. "Okay if I adjust the hip fit?" Jack asked. Harper swallowed. "Yes." The strap settled around her hips with a firm, supportive hold. Harper's shoulders dropped half an inch, then rose again as she caught herself. Jack looked up. "How is your breathing?" Harper inhaled. Her ribs expanded. Her face shifted with surprise. "It does not pinch," she whispered. Vivian's lips parted. She did not speak. Her eyes stayed locked on Harper's torso, watching for any sign of strain. Dr. Klein stepped closer. "Stand slowly," he instructed. "No sudden weight shift." Jack rose and took 1 step back. His hands hovered near Harper's shoulders without touching. Harper placed her palms on the chair arms. Her fingers trembled once, then steadied. She pushed up. Her legs straightened under the brace. Her hips held. For 1 second, Harper's face was blank with focus. For the second, her eyes widened. For the third second, her mouth opened, as if she had forgotten how to speak. "Mom," she said, voice thin. Vivian leaned forward. "What?" Harper blinked fast. Tears sprang up without permission. "It is quiet." Vivian's brow furrowed. "What is quiet?" Harper's breath hitched. The pain, she whispered. "It is not there." Jack's throat tightened. He did not move. He did not celebrate. He watched her knees and hips like a man watching a storm, decide whether to break. Dr. Klein leaned in, eyes narrowed, studying the angle of Harper's pelvis and the alignment of her spine. "Do not rush," he said, voice softer now. "Hold." Harper stood. Her shoulders stopped shaking, her hands unclenched. She took a slow breath, then another. Jack spoke barely above a whisper. "Shift your weight to your right just a little." Harper did. The brace responded, carrying the load through the hip cradle. Her torso stayed upright. No twist, no wince. Harper let out a sob that was more surprise than sadness. "I do not feel it," she said again, like she needed to hear her own words. Vivian lifted a hand to her mouth. Tears spilled, and she did not stop them. Her phone wobbled, then steadied as she forced her grip to hold. Jack nodded once, calm on the outside, everything shaking on the inside. 1 step, he said. Harper looked down at her right foot. She moved it forward. The brace guided the motion. Her heel touched the concrete. Her knee bent smoothly. Harper froze, waiting. Nothing stabbed, nothing burned. She took a breath that sounded like a laugh. "Oh my God," she whispered, then shook her head as if the words were too big. "Mom." Vivian's voice broke. "I am here." Harper took a second step. Her left foot moved, her hip rotated without forcing her spine to compensate. Her shoulders stayed level. Dr. Klein's mouth opened slightly. He closed it again, eyes fixed on her gait. "Her trunk control is improved," he murmured mostly to himself. "The load path is different." Jack watched Harper's face. "How is the ankle?" Harper's eyes squeezed shut for a second, checking her body like a map. "Fine," she said. "It is fine." She took a third step, then a fourth. Tears ran down her cheeks and she did not wipe them. Her hands lifted away from the chair, hovering in the air like she was learning what to do with them. "I am standing," she said, and her voice cracked. "I am walking." Vivian sank to her knees on the concrete as if her legs had given out. She made a sound that was half laugh, half sob, and pressed her palms to her face. Harper turned her head toward her mother and saw her there, small on the floor, in a way Vivian never allowed herself to be. "Mom," Harper whispered. Vivian looked up, face-wet eyes wide and disbelieving. "Keep going," she said, the words trembling. "Just keep going." Harper took another step, then another, the movement smoother each time. She looked at Jack, and for a moment her expression held something fierce and grateful. "You did it," she said. Jack could not speak. He gripped the edge of the workbench, knuckles whitening, and nodded once. His eyes blurred. Harper turned toward Vivian. Her steps quickened, not reckless, but eager, like her body had been waiting for permission. She reached her mother and dropped down as far as she could, careful of the brace, and wrapped her arms around Vivian's shoulders. Vivian clutched her daughter, like she could not believe she was solid. "I am sorry," Vivian sobbed into Harper's shirt. Harper held her tighter. "Stop," she whispered, voice shaking. "Just stop." Jack heard it and felt the words strike through him. He looked at Lily. Lily stood with both hands pressed to her mouth. Her eyes were huge, shining. Harper pulled back from her mother and looked at Lily. "Come here," she said. Lily hesitated, then stepped forward. Harper reached out and touched Lily's shoulder gently, the way Jack had done to Harper. "Your dad," Harper said, voice thick with tears. "He looks at people like they matter." Lily's face crumpled for a second, then she smiled, small and proud. Dr. Klein stood very still near the bench, staring at the brace like it had rewritten something in his head. He cleared his throat once. "Mr. Mercer," he said. Jack turned toward him, eyes red. Dr. Klein's voice was quieter than before. "From a mechanical standpoint, this is effective." Jack nodded, still unable to speak. Harper straightened and took a few steps away from Vivian, testing herself. Her movements held. Her shoulders stayed level. She laughed through tears, a sound that filled the shop and made it feel warmer. Outside, a couple of men from the neighboring bay wandered closer, drawn by the sound. One of them stopped at the doorway and stared, hand frozen on his cap. Another leaned in, eyes wide. Harper took one more step, then another, and did not stop. The men at the doorway drifted closer without meaning to. One of them lifted a phone, forgot to ask permission, then lowered it again when Vivian's eyes snapped up. Vivian wiped her face with the heel of her hand and stood, knees dusty posture returning out of habit. Her chest rose and fell hard like she had been running too. Harper turned in a slow circle, testing the world. Her laugh came out shaky. It filled the garage bay and made the air feel thinner, easier. Jack stayed near the bench, still gripping it, still afraid to move too fast and scare the moment away. His hands looked clean, but the lines of grease in his skin told the truth. He watched Harper's hips, her shoulders, the way her spine held itself upright. He watched for the smallest flinch. Harper looked at him. "It's not biting," she said, voice thick. "It's not twisting me." Jack nodded once. His throat worked. "How's your back?" Harper blinked, surprised by the question. She shifted her weight left then right, as if checking a door that used to stick. "Quiet," she whispered. Vivian's breath caught again. She turned her face away, but tears kept coming anyway. Dr. Klein stepped closer and crouched, eyes level with the hip cradle. He held his hands behind his back like he did not trust them. "Walk again," he said to Harper, brisk and careful. Slow, repeatable. Harper obeyed. 5 steps forward. Stop. Breathe. 5 steps back. Stop. Breathe. The brace moved with her, not against her. The joint sounds were clean, a soft click that never turned into a squeal. Lily made a small noise near the bench. Jack looked over. She was bouncing on the balls of her feet, hands clenched under her chin, like she was trying to keep herself from shouting. When Harper finished the second pass, Lily could not hold it anymore. "She's doing it," Lily said loud and bright. "She's really doing it." Harper turned and smiled at her. "Yeah," she said, "I am." Outside the bay, the street had gone strangely quiet. A neighbor from 2 doors down stood by a rusty pickup, arms crossed, staring. Someone else stepped out of a side shop and froze. The whole block looked the same as it always did, sun bleaching the pavement, train vibration underfoot, the air thick with salt and diesel. Only one thing had changed, and it changed everything in the space of a few footsteps. Vivian approached Jack. Her voice was low. "I need a chair." Jack grabbed an old stool and set it down without speaking. Vivian sat like her legs might fold again if she stayed standing. She stared at Harper with a kind of disbelief that had no place to go. Dr. Klein cleared his throat. "Mr. Mercer," he said. Jack turned. "Yes, sir." The doctor hesitated. That alone was new. "I need to examine this properly," he said. "Measurements, video, pressure mapping if possible." Jack nodded. "You can." Vivian lifted her phone again, but this time she held it steady on purpose. She recorded Harper walking not for proof to strangers, but because she was afraid her own memory would fail her. Harper completed another set, then sat breathing hard, cheeks wet. Vivian knelt in front of her daughter and touched her face. Harper caught Vivian's wrist gently. "Don't," Harper said. "Not unkind, just firm." Vivian swallowed. "I can't help it." Harper's voice softened. "Then help it by being here." They left the shop later than planned. Vivian paid Jack for the hose, then tried to hand him more. Jack pushed the money back. "Keep it," he said. "Use it for her care." Vivian's eyes narrowed. "You already did more than care." Jack looked down at his hands. "I did what I could." When the Range Rover pulled away, the street returned to noise. Engines, tools, the train. But Jack's shop felt different, like the air had been stirred and had not settled back into the old shape. Harper came back the next day. So did Vivian. No press, no cameras, just the three of them, and Dr. Klein for an hour in the morning. Harper walked slow laps across the concrete, while Jack watched and adjusted straps in tiny increments. Vivian sat on a folding chair with her phone face down in her lap, as if she had finally learned how to let it be quiet. Jack taped a line on the floor and marked distances with chalk. He made Harper pause at each mark, breathe, check posture, then step again. He watched sweat bead at her hairline. He watched the way effort made her mouth tighten. He watched her refuse to quit. Harper's body remembered pain like a language. Even when it was quiet, she expected it to return. Sometimes she flinched at nothing, then laughed at herself, embarrassed. "Sorry," she murmured once. Jack shook his head. "Don't apologize to me." Vivian stood and brought Harper water. She held the bottle near Harper's mouth, then stopped herself and handed it over instead. Harper took it with both hands, drank, and exhaled. "I forgot what it feels like to be tired like this," Harper said. "Not tired from hurting, just tired." Jack nodded. "That's a good tired." Vivian's eyes flicked to him. She did not argue. She just looked back at her daughter. On the third day, someone filmed from across the street. Jack saw the phone held high for a second and felt his stomach drop. By the time he stepped outside, the person had already walked away, head down, pretending to be on a call. That night, Jack's shop number began getting calls from unknown numbers. At first, it was polite. "Is it true? Can you help my sister? Do you take insurance?" Then it shifted. "Who gave you the right? You are going to kill someone. You are a fraud." Jack did not answer most of them. He kept his head down and kept Harper's training quiet. But the quiet did not hold. A local physical therapist came by, claiming she needed her car checked. While Jack worked, she stood too close to the bay and watched Harper walking. Her face went pale. "I've got a kid on my caseload," she said, voice small. "He cries every time we strap him in." "This looks different." Jack wiped his hands and kept his tone even. "It's one case," he said. The therapist's eyes stayed on Harper. "It's hope," she whispered. 2 days later, a thick envelope arrived. It was not the usual junk mail. The paper was heavy. The return address was printed in clean black letters. Axis Orthotics Legal Department. Jack held it in his hands and felt his pulse thud in his fingertips. The red stamp on the corner looked like a bruise. Lily stood behind him, peeking around his elbow. "Is it a bill?" she asked. "Worse," Jack said. He opened it at the workbench. The letter inside was cold, formal, and careful. It accused him of unauthorized modification of an Axis device. It cited regulations. It demanded he cease any work involving orthotic systems. It threatened civil action and potential criminal referral. Jack read it twice. The words stayed the same. Lily climbed onto the milk crate and stared at his face. "They can't," she said. Jack did not look at her right away. "They can," he answered. He folded the letter and set it down. His hands were steady in a way that scared him. He had gone quiet inside. That afternoon, Dr. Klein called Vivian. Jack could hear only Vivian's side of the conversation when she took the call in the shop parking lot. Vivian's posture went rigid, her jaw tightening on each word. Yes, she said, I understand. A pause. No, Vivian replied. I will not say it was a fluke. Another pause. Vivian's face drained of color. You are worried about your board, she said. When she returned to the bay, her eyes were bright with anger that did not know where to go. What did he say? Harper asked. Vivian took a breath. Noah cannot publicly support Jack, she said. He says the state board will come after him. They will review his license, his hospital privileges. Harper's hands tightened on her water bottle. So, he's scared. Vivian's voice sharpened. He is being realistic. Jack stepped closer. It's fine, he said. Vivian snapped her head toward him. No, it is not fine. Jack held her gaze. I didn't do it for credit. Vivian's lips pressed into a hard line. You did it anyway, and now a company is trying to crush you because you embarrassed their product. Jack looked down at the folded letter on the bench. His voice lowered. They aren't protecting her. They're protecting themselves. Vivian picked up the letter and read it in silence. When she finished, she set it down carefully, like it was contaminated. Harper's voice came quiet. Mom. Vivian turned. Harper's eyes were steady. I want to tell people, she said. Vivian's throat tightened. No. Harper kept going gentle but firm. They will make him look like a villain. They already are. They will say I'm a reckless rich girl who let a mechanic play doctor. I want to speak for myself. Vivian looked at her daughter and saw the same stubbornness she used to admire in a boardroom. She hated it now because it could get Harper hurt in a new way. You do not owe the world anything, Vivian said. Harper's voice stayed calm. I owe him my voice. Vivian stared at her for a long moment. Then she nodded once tight. Fine, she said, but we do it on my terms. The press conference was set at Mero Jen's Charleston office. The lobby smelled like polished stone and citrus. Cameras crowded near the entrance. Reporters adjusted microphones and checked their hair and phone screens. Vivian stood behind a podium, shoulders squared, the picture of control. Jack waited off to the side wearing his cleanest shirt, hands shoved into his pockets so people would not stare at the old cuts. The fluorescent light made him look tired. He felt out of place among the glass and the suits. Harper waited behind a partition with Vivian. She wore the brace under loose pants. The bandage on her ankle was gone, but a thin red line remained like a warning etched into skin. Vivian leaned close. If you feel weak, you sit, she whispered. Harper looked at her. If I feel weak, I stand anyway. Vivian closed her eyes for a second. Then she opened them and stepped to the podium. Cameras lifted, shutters snapped. Vivian's voice carried clean across the room. For 11 years, my daughter has lived with paralysis and chronic pain, she said. We have pursued every treatment that money and medicine could reach. A reporter raised a hand. Ms. Hart, are you endorsing an unlicensed mechanic modifying medical devices? Vivian's eyes narrowed. I am endorsing results, she replied. I am endorsing my daughter being able to stand without pain. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Another reporter called out, that is dangerous rhetoric. Vivian did not flinch. Dangerous is a device that costs more than most houses and still makes a teenager cry in her room at night, she said, voice steady, sharp. Jack's chest tightened. Harper's fingers curled around the edge of the partition. Vivian turned slightly and nodded. Harper rolled out at first chair, moving smoothly across the polished floor. A few people exhaled as if relieved to see a familiar image. Then Harper stopped, placed her hands on the armrests, and stood. The room went silent in a way that felt physical. Even the cameras seemed to hesitate. Harper took one step forward, then another. Her brace moved cleanly. Her shoulders stayed level. A flash popped. Harper reached the podium and held the edge with one hand. Her other hand rested at her side, fingers trembling slightly with the effort. My name is Harper Hart, she said. Her voice shook at first, then steadied. I have been in pain for 11 years. Her eyes swept the room. She did not look at the cameras like they were enemies. She looked at them like they were people who had forgotten what pain sounded like. I was told the pain was normal, Harper continued. I was told it was a side effect. I was told to accept it. Vivian's face tightened beside her. Harper's gaze shifted toward Jack standing in the corner. Jack Mercer asked me one question. He asked if my brace was pinching when I breathed, she said. No one else asked that, not once. A reporter tried to interrupt, but Harper lifted her hand slightly. Not a command, a request. The room held. I am not a device, Harper said. I am not a case study. I am a person. Jack treated me like a person. Her throat worked. She swallowed. The brace he built does not make me hurt. That matters to me more than his credentials. The room erupted into overlapping voices. Vivian stepped forward again. If any agency wants to investigate, investigate, she said. But do not pretend this is about safety when it is really about control. Jack felt every camera turn toward him, lenses like eyes. He kept his face still. His hands stayed in his pockets. He could feel sweat at the base of his spine. After the conference, the video hit the internet within hours. By nightfall, Harper's walk had been shared thousands of times. Comments piled up in every direction. People praised Jack as a miracle worker. Others called him reckless. Some accused Vivian of staging it. Some begged for help. Some threatened. Jack locked the shop early. He did not want a crowd. That did not stop the letters. One came from a state professional board, formal and cautious warning about unlicensed practice and patient safety. Another came from Axis, again harsher, with a shorter deadline. The envelopes stacked under the cracked coffee mug like a new kind of debt. Vivian returned to the shop near the end of the week, when the air was thick and the sky looked washed out. She stood across from Jack at the workbench, suit immaculate, eyes tired. Harper waited in the car, this time resting after training. Lily sat on the milk crate with her drawing pad, watching Vivian like a guard dog in a child's body. "I can hire the best legal team in the state," Vivian said. "I can make Axis regret sending you paper." Jack shook his head. "No." Vivian's brows drew together. "No." Jack's voice stayed calm. "If you do that, it becomes about your money. It becomes about my pride. It stops being about Harper." Vivian leaned forward, and hands on the bench. "It already is about more than Harper. They are coming for you." Jack looked at the letters. He touched the top envelope with one finger, feeling the edge of the paper. "Then they come," he said. Vivian's eyes flashed with frustration. "Why are you like this?" Jack's mouth tightened. He did not answer right away. When he did, his voice was quiet. "Because I promised someone I would not quit on people who need help." Vivian stared at him, breathing through her nose. The anger in her face shifted into something else, something tired and unwilling. She straightened. "If you change your mind, call me," she said. Jack nodded once. Vivian walked out. The garage door hinge gave a small squeal as it moved, then went quiet again. Jack stood at the bench after she left, alone with the smell of oil and the weight of the paper. He unfolded the harshest letter and read it one more time, lips moving without sound. Lily climbed down from the milk crate and came to stand beside him. She did not ask questions this time. She just slid her small hand into his, steady and warm. Jack held the letter until the paper softened under his grip. Lily's hand stayed in his, steady and warm, as if she could hold him upright by contact alone. The shop was quiet except for the fan and the distant slide of a train. A knock came at the open bay, not loud, not timid, precise. Jack looked up. A woman stood just inside the threshold, rain jacket damp at the shoulders, a canvas tote in one hand. She was not dressed like a reporter or a lawyer. Her hair was pulled back, her eyes sharp, her posture tired, in the way of someone who spent her life staring at problems until they gave up their secrets. "Jack Mercer," she said. Jack's jaw tightened. "Who's asking?" She glanced at the stacked envelopes on the bench, then at the brace frame resting under the lamp. "Dr. Elise Park," she replied. "Biomedical engineering, Clemson." Vivian had mentioned her name once in passing, as a possibility she did not dare hope for. Jack felt his pulse shift. "I did not call you," Jack said. "I know," Elise replied. She set the tote down, unzipped it, and pulled out a thin folder. No glossy brochure, just notes and printed articles with tabs. "Someone sent me a video. Your brace. Harper walking." Lily stepped closer to Jack, protective without meaning to be. Elise noticed, then lowered her voice. "I want to see the device," Elise said, "if you allow it." Jack hesitated, then nodded once. "Look, do not touch Harper. She's not here." "I am not here for Harper," Elise said. I am here for your design." She studied the brace the way Jack studied engines, with patience, with hands that hovered before they landed. She rotated the hip cradle slowly, watching how the load transferred. She traced the alignment marks. She pressed the silicone padding and felt for pressure points. 30 minutes passed without a single sentence. Jack stood still the whole time. His shirt clung to his back. He could hear Lily breathing beside him. Finally, Elise straightened and removed her glasses. Her eyes were wet, and it startled Jack more than anger would have. "Who taught you dynamic balance transfer?" she asked. Jack swallowed. "No one." Elise looked at him for a long moment. "This is not tinkering," she said quietly. "This is a system." Jack felt his throat tighten. "They're going to bury me in paper." Elise nodded toward the letters. "They will try." She tapped the brace once, gentle. "And I will not let them pretend this is junk." Jack blinked. "Why?" Elise's mouth tightened into something like a smile, but there was no joy in it. "Because I have spent 20 years watching good ideas die in conference rooms," she said, "and because your work is better than the product they are defending." She opened her folder and slid a document across the bench. "I will testify," she said. "You will need counsel. You will need documentation, measurements, safety protocols, and you will need to stop acting like this is a fight you can win alone." Jack stared at the page. The words were dense, official. He felt the same cold weight he felt when he read Axis's letter, but now it carried a different shape. "I don't want Vivian's money to turn this into a spectacle," Jack said. Elise's gaze sharpened. "Then keep your mouth shut about money," she replied. "Let the science speak." The hearing room in Columbia smelled like carpet and coffee that had been reheated too many times. A seal hung on the wall behind the panel. Papers lay stacked in front of men and women, who looked like they had spent their lives saying no. Axis had attorneys in dark suits. Their folders were thick. Their voices were smooth. Jack sat at a table with Elise and a local attorney. Elise had pulled in on short notice. Lily was not allowed inside, so Vivian kept her in the hallway with a bottle of water and a coloring book. Lily's eyes stayed on the door like she could guard it with will. Harper sat beside Vivian in the front row. No wheelchair. She wore the brace under loose pants. Her hands rested in her lap, fingers interlaced calm on the surface. Vivian's phone stayed in her purse. Axis spoke first. They used words like unauthorized, unsafe, unlicensed. They spoke about standards the way people spoke about religion. They painted Jack as a risk. Elise listened without reacting. When it was her turn, she stood, adjusted the microphone, and began. She did not raise her voice. She did not plead. She described load paths, centered balance, force distribution through the hips, reduced torsion on the lumbar spine. She showed gait videos and pressure maps. She explained why the brace Jack built did not just help Harper walk. It helped Harper stop fighting her own body. A panelist leaned forward. "Are you saying existing devices are flawed?" Elise met the question head-on. "I am saying this design addresses a failure mode we have tolerated," she replied, "and it does so with measurable improvements." Axis objected. Elise did not flinch. She kept pointing to data. When Jack was asked to speak, he stood and kept his hands visible on the table. "I am not here to play doctor," he said. "I am here because a person was hurting inside a device that was supposed to help her." A panelist narrowed his eyes. "And you think that excuse is violating regulation?" Jack's mouth tightened. He looked at Harper for a second, then back to the panel. "I think it explains why I could not do nothing," he said. Harper asked to speak. The room shifted when she stood. "I have been in pain for 11 years, she said, voice steady. "This brace is the first time my body is quiet." She did not cry. She did not perform. She simply stood there, a person in a room full of paper refusing to be reduced. The decision arrived 2 weeks later, in a stamped envelope that looked like every threat Jack had received until he opened it. A provisional license, a supervised authorization, a term of 2 years, mandatory coursework, safety reporting, Elise's signature on the supervision agreement. Jack sat on the shop stool with the letter shaking in his hands. Lily climbed onto his knee and pressed her forehead to his shoulder. "You're not in trouble," she whispered. Jack exhaled long and uneven. "Not today." The new space opened in North Charleston without balloons or ribbon. A plain sign by the door read, "Mercer Mobility Workshop." Inside, the air smelled of fresh paint and clean metal. Sunlight fell through the high windows onto parallel bars and a row of workbenches. A small plaque hung near the entrance. No long speech, just a name. For Evan. Harper walked in on her own wearing sneakers and a simple smile. She carried a clipboard, now helping Elise run intake forms, learning how to watch bodies move the way Jack watched machines. Vivian stood nearby, sleeves rolled up, holding a box of supplies, like she was trying to learn how to be useful without writing a check in front of everyone. Late one afternoon, they drove to Folly Beach. The tide was low, the sand was cool underfoot. The air tasted like salt. Vivian took off her shoes and held them in one hand. Her other hand was empty. Harper walked beside her, stepped steady, the brace quiet under fabric. She stopped him at the edge of the water and stared at the small waves folding in. Vivian's voice came soft. "Do you want to go closer?" Harper nodded. She stepped forward until the water touched her ankles. She sucked in a breath, then laughed, surprised by the cold. Vivian watched her daughter's face like she was seeing her for the first time in years. She did not reach for her phone. She did not look away. Jack stood a few yards back with Lily. Lily dug her toes into the sand and leaned into his side. "Dad," she said, looking up, "are you okay?" Jack looked at Harper in the water, then at Vivian standing still beside her. His eyes stung. He nodded once. "I'm okay," he said. Lily slipped her hand into his again. The ocean kept moving. The brace made no sound. Thank you so much for listening to today's story. If this story resonated with you or made you reflect, I'd love to hear your thoughts, so feel free to share them in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss the next story.